Hello, everyone, and welcome to Two Show Day. I'm your host, Diana Shabai Booker, and I'm joined by my producer, Mike McCord, for another round of hot takes. And Mike is looking dejected because we are doing this for the second time today.
So listen, I had this really great idea. I was like, the studio's a little cluttered, a little messy. I want to fix some wires, make things look a little bit neater. Add these cool pop filters. We have these little we don't use headphones, but there's headphone volume things on here. And I took everything, I unplugged everything, I straightened everything up, plugged everything back in, and then something doesn't work.
Static electricity is a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we hit record on stuff. Is that one recording? Probably.
Keep this in.
There it is.
Great.
We hit record on all this stuff on this camera. And there was a little shock, and everything evidently stopped recording.
Yeah, it did a little blip, and then it looked okay. So we were like, okay, great. And we did the whole thing.
But here's the thing. We've got great audio.
Yeah.
Here's a fun clip. Can I speak to Deborah Sue? We have one piece of film from it because the other camera wasn't attached. So here's a fun clip from that. I did audition. Let me try that one more time because I went, wah! What's that?
That's the disturbed
Yeah,
take.
that's right. Yeah. But we're gonna do it again.
This is like the Snyder cut of our podcast. We are here today not necessarily with a hot take, but
That's
with a contemplative question.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're doing it. We're really doing it on the second round here.
Yeah.
Oh, and also I'm going to say there are just going to be children screaming in the background because the Addams Family is about to start on the main stage. And we screwed up and we're doing this too late. Now we got to deal with Addams Family.
I appreciate that Diana is taking some credit here. Diana did nothing wrong.
No, I didn't do anything.
Diana
I just sat here.
Diana says, "Are we going?" And I say yes, and she goes, "Welcome back to Two Show Day," and she does her thing, and it's great. We're going to try again.
But you came up with this question. You had the question of if you could be involved in any show, what show would you like to be involved in? And I thought you had a really good rationale of why you wanted to ask this question.
Did I?
Yes, you were talking about being
Community
involved
theater.
in community theater.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me. It's like we've had this conversation before. So when I came back to the area, I really had high hopes of being involved. Like I've always done community theater. That's the only theater I've ever done. And I came back and I was like, oh, this will be really great. And what I found was I was very apprehensive to commit to anything because my schedule is kind of crazy with work, and and I have my son on some weekends and not on others, and it just felt not insurmountable, but just like a problem I didn't want to deal with.
Yeah.
So I didn't get involved in anything. I didn't audition for anything, but there is a show that I have always wanted to do. Mm-hmm. The show that I desperately want to be a part of is Stephen Sondheim's Assassins. Mm-hmm. So I learned about Assassins. There's a really great book it's called Assassination Vacation.
Yes.
And it is written by Sarah Vowell, who is an incredible author. She's written for everybody. Mm-hmm. And strangely enough, is also the voice of Violet in The Incredibles.
Right.
The Incredibles 2.
What a strange. She's done other voiceover work, do you know?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I really think this is the only thing.
She's got a niche.
She was friends with Brad Bird. And I don't remember how they were connected. But when they ended up doing the audiobook of Assassination Vacation, she got a lot of her friends to be in the audiobook to play different characters.
Okay.
Like Jon Stewart is James Garfield.
That's really cool.
And Brad Bird is Charles Coteau, who is my favorite of the successful presidential assassins. Lots of
love that you have a favorite assassin.
Well, sure. Charles Coteau is the craziest. Let's baseline it. You have to be crazy to want to assassinate the president in the first place. You have to be crazy to
attempt to assassinate.
Want to assassinate the president and then start to plan how you're going to do it.
Sure.
We are going to jail, you and me. Someone from
Cut
the
this out. I saw a Homeland Security truck outside today, and I was like, well, there goes my life.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right. So you have there is a level of crazy for you to like, figure out how you're going to kill the president.
Think this is a good idea. I'm going to go through.
I'm going to do this.
Yes,
let's start sketching out some plans.
Yes, that's crazy talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Charles Guiteau was even crazier because he had a level of just unawareness to his own. What's the like if you just don't know you're not at all self-aware. Sure. Right? Just a lack of self-awareness. That's what I was trying to say. Mm-hmm. A lack of self-awareness. I got there. He was a lawyer. He was a preacher. He was a writer, and he was bad at all of those things. And he was so poor guy. He eventually found his way to the Oneida Colony in upstate New York. This is the place. Like, if you have Oneida dishes, this is their thing, right? It is upstate New York, like in the Buffalo-ish kind of region. And he found his way to the Oneida community, which was a free love commune. And their belief was that younger men would sleep with older women so as to learn how to service women. Okay. And younger women would sleep with older men. Unsurprisingly, this colony was founded by a man. Charles Guiteau joined this community and then became known, like his nickname there was Charles Get Out. So like
in the free love colony.
Couldn't get laid even in a free love colony. So like he was really crazy.
Yeah.
So he wants to be the ambassador to France. And this was at a time when you could go to the White House and just knock on the door. He would knock on the door. This guy would laugh him out of the building, like, because you're at any point in American history, you're going to knock on the door and be like, I want to be the ambassador to France.
Yeah.
Sure you do, honey. Yeah. That's fine. You go ahead. So he ended up shooting Garfield in Union Station in D.C., which is now gone. It had been torn down. But he then, Secret Service, I think it was Secret Service at the time, it might have been the Pinkertons, I don't recall. But either way, the security tackled him, and he was caught immediately, and then was tried for attempted assassination at the time, although Garfield ended up later dying. But Guiteau decided to defend himself, which is always a good idea.
Yeah, to represent himself.
That's right.
Court.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And what he would do is the totality of his defense was basically plays that he would write in the evenings when he was in prison, and the plays featured the jurors and the prosecutor and the judge and Guiteau and God. And God would in these plays demand an explanation from the various people persecuting Guiteau and say, why are you after my man Guiteau? And the judge would say, because I was weak, or something like that, and then would beg forgiveness, and God would deny the forgiveness and damn him to hell.
Yeah. I love that not only is he writing fan fiction about himself and God, but then using that as a defense in a court of law.
Yep.
And I also love a level of crazy people where it's like some crazy people are just incoherent and are just spouting like nonsense all the time. But
Guiteau
this is
wrote
like
theater.
Meticulous crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So unsurprisingly, he lost. He was found guilty.
Amazing.
Right. Yeah, I know. And here's where Sondheim like really does the most Sondheim thing that he could do, because he's sentenced to hang in the gallows, and he is standing on the gallows, and they say, "Do you have any last words?" And he says, "These words came to me last night as if in a dream. If set to music, they would be rendered quite effective." And then he starts to scream, "I am going to the Lordy, glory, glory, hallelujah. I am going to the Lordy." I have unified my country. I've unified my party. I have saved the nation. I shall be remembered. I am going to the Lordy. I know these words because Sondheim set them to music and rendered them quite
He
effective.
sure did.
And in the show, like, Guiteau is so crazy. He's so manic, and he literally is doing a soft shoe routine up the stairs to the gallows. And there's a blackout, and you hear the floor of the gallows go, and the rope snap.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's dark, but at the same time, it's a toe tapper.
Oh yeah.
It's a toe tapper.
That sums up most of Assassins. It's dark.
It is,
but it's a toe tapper.
It's a toe tapper. Yeah, for sure. What I love about Assassins is that very thing. Right? So I brought up Sarah Vowell before.
Mm-hmm.
So in her book, in the prologue of the book, she actually goes to see a production of Assassins, I think at Williamstown.
Mm-hmm.
And she makes this joke where she was like, oh, John Wilkes Booth, he was giving me the eyes. He's smoldering.
Yeah.
And in the 90s production, John Wilkes Booth was played by Victor Garber.
Mm-hmm.
In the Broadway version of it, which came out in 2004, Neil Patrick Harris was the balladeer, his name,
Right.
the narrator, basically. And Booth was played by Michael Service, yes, who is, of course, has been bald his whole life, and they put him in this very lovely wig. Sarah Vowell is like, she got some feelings for Booth. And I had a really interesting conversation with Maggie Mancinelli Cahill, who's the producing artistic director at Capitol Rep. And I was talking about how I love this show, and I was going to go out, I was going to audition for this show, and I was asking her for advice and so on. And she said she really hates the show. And I said, that's surprising to me, because Assassins feels like the perfect kind of show to be on the stage at Capitol Rep.
Yep.
Right. It's a relatively small cast. It's very, there's not, they're not big set pieces.
Right. You can kind of stage it however
you
you
like.
Yeah.
All sorts of cool ways.
Yeah.
But her struggle with that show is that you invariably end up defending the assassins. Right. All of the assassins are bad. They're bad guys. Booth is a bad dude. Leon Czolgosz, who killed McKinley in 2001, he was an anarchist. He was an ardent follower of Emma Goldman. He was not a good dude. Guiteau was crazy and not a good dude.
Right.
But also, but they talk about all of the would-be assassins, right? Samuel Bick is the other really funny character in that, because he dresses as Santa, and in July, because who's going to suspect Santa? Which is just
because his whole thing is he's going to steal a plane and crash it into the White House to kill Nixon.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly right. And we know this because he called the White House from payphones, and he would it was just a diatribe of nonsense as he's talking to, and he's calling him Dick, and hey Dick, they're friends. And by the way, he got on the plane.
Oh, really?
He got in the plane and took it over. The plane didn't take off, but I think that snipers got him from the windows.
Okay.
I mean, so he was. I don't know that the plane would have ever gotten off the ground.
Right.
But
did this man have the faintest idea of how to fly this plane?
No, certainly
Probably not.
No, he was dressed as Santa Claus.
The Christmas magic would make the plane
absolutely
fly.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But the point is that all of the characters are they are historically. There was something wrong with these people. They were not people to be lauded. They're not people who did the right thing.
Right.
Right. But in this play, they are all made to be sympathetic characters in one way or the other. They're the funniest song in the whole show is "Unworthy of Your Love," and it is a duet between John Hinckley, who tried to assassinate Reagan, and Squeaky Fromme, who tried to assassinate Ford, who was a follower of Charles Manson.
Right.
So Hinckley is singing to Jodie Foster because he thought that he could win Jodie Foster's affections if he shot Reagan. I don't think it would have worked for any number of reasons, not the least of which she's a lesbian, but also...
And probably a child at that point, or a young woman,
Yeah. And then Squeaky Fromme is is singing is like her undying love to Charles Manson. Yeah. But it's this really beautiful duet that these two people do. It's so funny.
John Hinckley Jr. like still makes music in real life, which is nuts too.
John Hinckley tried to tour, and it came out in the Albany Times-Union that Hinckley was going to appear in the Capital Region. And I immediately texted our boss and I said, please, for the love of God, tell me we did not book John Hinckley. And she said, we did not. And I said, thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that show ended up getting canceled anyway. Good. Yeah. So anyway, right. So Maggie's problem is that you can't, like you're celebrating these people and you shouldn't be celebrating them, which I think is absolutely an incredibly is so valid. What a good point. I love the show enough. I think that if the show is done the right way, you can acknowledge that the fact that you are quote unquote siding with these people is meant to be ridiculous, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I see how that is valid. I could see how somebody has that viewpoint. And there's a lot of debate now about local productions. John Wilkes Booth's song has the N-word in it.
Right.
He addresses Lincoln as an N lover.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't. Well, I mean, you should be uncomfortable saying that word. You shouldn't want to say it at all. Absolutely. Right. But that's the whole point, is that John Wilkes Booth is not a nice man.
Right.
Right? That he builds up your sympathy, and then right at the end of the song, that's when he drops it, and it's like, oh no.
And let me tell you, so again, as two white people, let's have a really strong opinion on this.
We are the right opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. But in Victor Garber especially, like when he gets to that, that N-word lover line, he leans into that word with some ferocity, and to me, the use of that word in that moment is important, right? Because it is that's the moment where you're like, oh, like it doesn't matter if he's charming, it doesn't matter if he's handsome, it doesn't matter if the songs are catchy, because he said that, and that's who he really is, right? And they all sort of have those moments. They all have moments where you, especially the three assassins, right? The three successful, quote unquote, successful assassins, all have those moments where you're like, oh no, these people are not okay. These are not good people. Charles Guiteau, even though Charles Guiteau is crazy and is the funniest of all of the characters, the most slapsticky of all of the characters, he still has a moment where like he screams and he goes crazy, and he has moments where that veil of lucidity drops, and you're like, oh no, my guy's batshit crazy. Right. So all that being said, I have loved that show literally for decades at this point. Yeah. I have that whole show worked out in my head. I know the tone. I know the sort of the underlying aesthetic that I would want to go for. It's really it's so fun. And as far as Sondheim goes, I think it's really singable, and he has a lot of fun with a lot of those numbers. In our first attempt at this, I was telling you about the woman, Sarah Jane Moore is her name. I couldn't remember the last time.
Yeah.
But Sarah Jane Moore, she tried to assassinate Gerald Ford, and were it not for the gun sights being off, she would have done it. But there's a song called The Gun Song, and it starts with Leon Czolgosz, and he's singing about how a gun is sort of a representation of capitalism, and capitalism is bad, so he's going to use the symbol of capitalism to kill this capitalist. Right. Okay. So he sings this first part, and then John Wilkes Booth comes out, and after all of this really heavy, I mean, the music is heavy. There's a lot of low brass. And John Wilkes Booth comes out and he says, all you have to do is squeeze your little finger, right? Like, it's so simple. And so then they have a little duet, and then Charles Guiteau comes out and he's crazy. And then Sarah Jane Moore comes out and she has this gigantic purse and she's like frenetic. Yeah. And she's just like, she's trying to like tell the story, but she's distracted because she's trying to find the gun, and she's like, and she's like, the gun's on sale. And as she says that, she pulls out a shoe. She goes, I got it. It was on sale. No, not the shoe. Well, actually the shoe was too, shit, where is it? There it is. Oh, I got it. Yeah. And then she goes, yeah, there it is. And in the version that I saw, the 90s version, she holds up the gun by the trigger guard like it's like a stinky piece of cheese or something. And it's so funny. And I think it's a very dark comedy, right? There are jokes that are, about world events that are not funny, but they're the dark humor of it is sort of cathartic, and like that, to me, that's really what it was.
Yeah. And I think Assassins really, like, it makes these people of history who we've heard their names and we know what they've done, he makes them human.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes them heroes.
Right.
Though. Yeah. So I guess it depends on your point of view. If you think they're sympathetic and maybe you find yourself becoming uncomfortable with, I feel sympathetic towards that, well, maybe that's
but I think that's his point.
Sondheim loved to make people uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Loved. That's the whole point of Company. He said, I want to take these rich theater goers and I'm going to throw their problems back in their face.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he did.
The end of Assassins, they end up in the Texas Book Depository, and all of the assassins come and they're there with Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah. And they're trying to convince Lee Harvey Oswald to go through with the assassination of Kennedy. And there is a moment where Giuseppe Zangara, who tried to kill FDR, who ended up killing Anton Cermak, who was the mayor of Chicago. I've seen the show. He is speaking in Italian, and he's just passionately speaking this really, really fast Italian, and all of the other assassins are sort of translating. Mm-hmm. And they talk about what's going to happen after he kills Kennedy, and it's all horrible. Yeah. A woman will throw herself in Italy. A woman will throw herself from the top of the Duomo, and his children will cry, and everyone's children will cry, and his wife will cry, and it's this, like, it's really he is literally listing all of the ways in which this is going to hurt people, and that's like the last thing that happens, right? There is no. No one is saved at the end.
Right.
No one walks away innocent of what they have done.
Right.
That all being said, I can absolutely see Maggie's issue with it.
Yeah. So, should you get to be involved in this production of Assassins, what would you want to do? Would you want to play somebody? Would you want to direct?
I would.
All of the above?
Yeah, I'm very nervous about the idea of being in a show. I really think that my memory stinks. And I'm really, for years, I've been in my head about remembering lyrics. If anyone went to the Bash at Proctor's, I forgot lyrics on that show. And I wrote them. So there's that. I think that at this point, I would want to... I have thought so much about what I want the show to be. Mm-hmm. Someone else directing it would just annoy me. They would just do everything wrong.
Got it.
So I would need to do it myself.
I have feelings about that all the time.
Yeah.
Just get out of my way.
That's right. Exactly. All right. So I have now waxed philosophical about presidential assassinations.
Yeah.
Hooray. All right. So what is your show? What is your...
Yes. So from a stage manager perspective, I've had a couple of shows that have been sort of dark content, and I think that's really interesting. Stage manager is there for every rehearsal, and I really like when we get to do, or I don't even get to do it, but when the actors get to do table work and they get to really dig into motivations and that kind of thing. And I find dark shows, there's just so much more meat there, and those conversations are so interesting. That's why I love talking about art. That's why we're here. It's like I really loved that with Spring Awakening, and I did a show called The Pillow Man recently, which is also very dark. So something like Assassins, I would love to do. Something that has those sort of ethical, moral questions that you get to dive into. I love a piece of art that makes you think.
Yeah.
I would also love to do something that has a lot of moving pieces.
Okay.
I think that is a fun challenge. So my top show would be Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812.
Right.
Which we've talked about on the show with Jeremiah, but a brief snippet is it's a slice of War and Peace is what it's based on. It's about
very lighthearted.
And it's a 2.5-hour show, and apparently it's like a 50-page slice or something.
My God.
Like it's not even.
I've tried to read War and Peace, and tried is the operative word.
Good luck. I'm not even attempting.
Nope.
But it's about this young girl named Natasha, who she's engaged to this man, Andre, who isn't really in the picture, and she goes to stay with her cousin, and then she meets somebody else, and then, this whole thing happens. And then Pierre's story is sort of runs parallel. He's an older man. He's in an unhappy marriage. He's sort of questioning life and what he's doing, and they meet at the end. And anyway, it's like when we saw it on Broadway, it's like this huge production. Like there's the stage, but you can also sit on the stage, and the whole theater was decorated, and the actors come up and they have props that they give to you. Like they were throwing out little pierogies and like little Chinese takeout containers and shaker eggs and letters and all those kinds of things.
Amazing.
And in the off-Broadway, or one of the off-Broadway productions, they had carafes of vodka on the table for the audience. So
Wow.
like there are all sorts of interactive things you can do with it, all kind of creative staging. And I think being the one in charge to keep track of all that would be something I haven't done to that scale before.
Right.
So I would love to do that show. And I would also love to do not a youth production, because I work better with adults.
I hope that I'm going to make sure that in the edit we all saw Diana's hand.
That's
I work
important.
better with adults.
That's important part of the story.
No.
I'd love to do SpongeBob. I'd love to do SpongeBob. It's colorful, and there are so many props and so many sound effects and like really specific like sight gags with the props, like how he gets the ukulele thrown to him from the pit and then like smashes it, and then he gets another one, and just all those cartoony things.
So good.
Yeah. And I love especially with the Broadway and touring productions, but how the set and costume design were sort of like found objects.
Oh, yeah.
And how it's very like, we're under the sea and this is trash that people have thrown in the sea.
Right.
But I just love vision like that. So any show where a director has a very specific vision and we follow it through all the way, I'm very attracted to that kind of work.
I really appreciate that. I'm a sucker for stage magic. I mean, I really am. I don't remember how we got on this topic the last time we had this conversation an hour and a half ago, but I saw the Harry Potter show before when it was still the two-part thing.
Right.
And again, just all of that stage magic, and I can't even imagine what it's like to stage manage that thing. I don't know who's calling that show, but damn, there is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Just so much. I will say my one complaint. I have to say my one complaint.
Please.
This is sort of apropos of nothing, because once again, I don't remember how we got here the last time.
I don't
but
either,
but it's worth the catharsis of living
get
it
off your
again.
chest. Yeah.
Is that show, they spent $40 million to renovate and prepare the theater and build that show in New York. When you go to, it's the Lyric?
The Lyric.
Yeah.
Yep.
They have put like steel gargoyle things the length of that building, and that building is pretty much like, it's an avenue.
It's huge.
It's enormous. I mean, I don't know if this is spoilers. Like there's magic that reveal like the entire theater. There's a spell cast in the house, and words are appearing. Snape flies away with some Dementors. There is a frigging pool in the middle of the stage. There's a trap door that pulls back, and two of the actors come out of a pool.
Wow.
Okay? But then at the end, they go to Godric's Hollow to see the graves of Harry's parents, and the graves are just steamer trunks standing on their side. And I just want to be like, that's it. That's where you drew the line, you guys. You were just like, well, listen, we blew all our money on the in-stage pool, so styrofoam is just too expensive.
Just couldn't spend that $40 on some spray painted cardboard graves.
This makes me so mad. That all being said, that show is they're trying to take that show on the road, and I'm really curious to see how, like, right now all of those shows are sit downs. So, but again, like, they spent $40 million on the building, right? I mean, that's overstating, but like, there are so many things that they built into that space.
Yeah.
When Philip saw that movie, when Philip saw that show, when he came back, like, I was just like peppering him with questions, like, tell me everything.
Yeah.
You know, like, is that thing going to tour? And he said, that show can never tour. There's too much. It's too complicated. There's too much stuff. Now, of course, they did. So I'm very curious to see what it's going to be like.
Yeah, they might have to change it.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
But I feel like this is getting even more off topic, but a lot of Broadway shows now are more willing to customize their theater, right? Like you see that with Cabaret right now.
Yeah.
Or Here Lies Love ripped out all the seats of the Broadway. or Just in Time, which is the new Bobby Darin musical with Jonathan Groff. That's in the Circle in the Square, and they have 2 stages and like cabaret tables in between. So a lot of that is happening now, and I don't know if it's like we need an immersive. I did this again. We need an immersive experience around this, but it certainly makes it harder to imagine a tour.
We had a previous hot take where someone was talking about, is Broadway getting, am I getting old, or is Broadway getting boring?
Right.
I think was the question.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're describing. I think is indicative of that, right? Like you have to do more crazy shit to get. Like, I mean, Idina Menzel is, scaling
upside down on a
right
tree.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's. Yeah, we're gonna get way off topic, so we should table this for a different hot take.
Great.
I will say this though. I will say this again though. I genuinely believe, and I hope you don't think this was just a line from the last time we had this conversation. I genuinely believe that you and I should pitch to the folks at SLOC Assassins.
SLOC, for your 100th season, this is our official submission tape.
Assassins. Michael spoke so eloquently about the value of a good team. Right? I mean, like I feel like we work very well together. Hopefully you all agree. Hopefully you agree, and you're not just being nice to me. But like, if we could find, like, we got to find the right music director, and like we know people, the right choreographer. I don't. You don't.
Yeah, Assassins. I guess it depends.
I mean, you need someone who can teach Charles Guiteau how to soft shoe.
Do you know how to do that?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
Again, did you see the bash? I did not.
I did not see the bash.
Oh, right. I have video. I'll show you. It's not good. It's not good. We tried. It was bad.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that you heard it here first, folks. It's going to be a Shabai Booker McCord joint.
Love that. I love our triple name. I will also put out in the universe, since our last episode, I have been thinking about putting my foot back in directing again.
Oh, yeah, right.
Not committal, but I would love to do She Loves Me.
Yes.
I love She Loves Me. I've never seen it live. I'm really excited that Opera Saratoga is doing it this year. And I love how Opera Saratoga uses the UPH space.
Yes.
Gina and I talk about this sometimes too. They're in the balcony and they use the in the round space so well, but it's so hard to bring theater in there because you need to know the space and you need to rehearse in there and stuff. So I'm really excited for them to do that. I'm also excited for Troy Foundry to be in that space.
I didn't even know that.
Yes, with Shane Camaras' show.
Shane's show. I did know
Antonio.
that. Yes,
yeah.
right. I forgot.
So I'm really excited to see that too.
Yeah.
But She Loves Me I'm such a sucker for a rom-com, and it's just such a perfect romantic but hilarious and lighthearted show, and there's great dance numbers in it, and just
and I mean, for my money, there is not a more fun song there's songs of realization, right? Like where the character starts singing, and like by the end of you watch them figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. And you watch, and I can't believe I'm blanking on the character's name. Who's the
Amalia.
Amalia, right?
Yep.
Amalia and George. You watch Amalia like put the pieces together that she loves George, and like. And in that Vanilla Ice Cream song where it starts, he brought me ice cream.
Yeah, and the song's like, it's exactly like that. It's like a train. Yeah.
Right, and by the end of it, she hits this like super high note, like, and she's holding up the ice cream. Oh, it's so great. Such a great show.
Yeah.
I will say that this is one of my fears about. I think this is why I want to stay in directing, is because I'm fastly getting to the point in my life where, like, if I auditioned for She Loves Me, I would not get George. I would get Mr. Marichek, and Marichek tries to kill himself. Spoilers. He fails, but I wouldn't. Is my point. I would just.
That would be some dedication if you got cast as Marichek, went through the whole rehearsal process, and then just
opening night
swapped out the gun.
Most memorable opening night in I was gonna mention a company. Opening night in SLOC's history. No, we don't want that.
They're not gonna take us now.
Right. I mean,
they're gonna be like, that guy's gonna kill himself. Yeah, I don't want to deal with that insurance paperwork.
Yeah, being Marichek is my 13th reason. I'm just.
All right. Well, that's a nice happy place to end it.
We did it.
We did it. If this doesn't record, we're not released. This is.
No, this episode's doomed. But we'll have 2 audio versions of it and 1 camera from right there.
That's the one.
The one.
You're welcome.
The little guy.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Blue Show Day is hosted by Diana Shabai Booker. It's executive produced by Diana and Collaborative Studios. It's produced and edited by me, Michael McCord. It's recorded at Open Stage Media Studios and distributed by Collaborative Studios. Any opinions expressed herein are not necessarily the opinions of Open Stage Media, Collaborative Studios, Proctor's Collaborative, or any of its affiliates or partners. If you would like to become a part of the Collaborative Studios network, please contact us at collaborativestudios@proctors.org.